What's up, guys, and welcome to this X-Men Dark Phoenix movie review. So, this is a casual review. I don't pretend like I'm an expert or anything. It's just like, it's for fun because I decided to give my opinion, which I think goes a little bit opposite of what most critics and most audience, fans, and casuals really state. So, all in all, I'll just start by saying I didn't hate this movie, even though I was worried that I wouldn't enjoy it because of all the critics and reviews that pretty much prepared me to hate it. So, when I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score on Wednesday when the review ban was lifted, I was like, this is gonna be like messy. It's gonna be bad, but I'll still go because I enjoy watching an X-Men story. I like Sophie Turner as well. I like James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, I like Jennifer Lawrence. I like the cast, so I'm just gonna go and see what it's all about. I like the Dark Phoenix storyline in the comics, and the worst thing that will happen is that I'll just have spent 2 hours watching something I don't like, and I think that's the vision, the mindset you need to have when you go and watch a movie that you're not too sure about, and you still decide to go and watch it for the best or worst. So for me, it was actually worth my time, my 2 hours in the theaters. I went with my roommate, and he also enjoyed it, and he's more of a casual fan of everything Marvel than me, but he had similar opinions than when we discussed it when we were in the car coming back from the movie. So I'm just gonna start by saying Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, lead character, is probably the best thing about this movie. It's actually crazy how she's grown as an actress since the early days of Game of Thrones. First few seasons I thought she was kind of like bland, but I like her character. I like a little bit of the sass that Sansa had, but I thought it was too sporadic, and you never really hooked on her character until season 5, 6, 7, and she's pretty divisive as a character. It's either like you love Sansa or you really don't like her. But nobody could fairly say that Sophie Turner did a bad job in this movie, because she is excellent at incarnating a shy and slightly insecure Jean at the beginning of the movie, like before the Phoenix Force kicks in, and when it kicks in, she's actually pretty good at showing the large spectrum of emotions that you go through when you're struggling. Sadness, grief, regrets, just all those emotions. They're all on the darker scale of the spectrum. There's not a lot of happy Jean in this movie, if you want to say. But I think Sophie Turner did the work to prepare, to study mental illness. She said she studied schizophrenia, identity disorder, and addiction, I think. Also depression. Well, she had depression, so she knows what it's all about. And I really think it shows in this movie. She's probably the most well-prepared member of the cast in terms of impersonating the character they're supposed to be. Of course, you're gonna have James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, who can seem to miss when they play Magneto and Charles Xavier. But yeah, I just really like Sophie Turner in a lead role. She really seems to thrive when she uses telekinetic powers, especially the darker ones where, you know, the makeup and the special effects really help accentuate how menacing Jean really is meant to be. The crackling on the face is like quite intimidating in certain parts of the movie because it really shows that she's about to go all out. Well, not all out because I'll talk about it later. But she really is convincing as, you know, a good hero doing bad things. A person that does things she doesn't really want, but at the same time she's enjoying it. Which in the trailer is like, you know, when I lose control, bad things happen, but it feels good. You see that struggle in her acting, and I really appreciated that. And the preparation for these scenes must have been like really long and tedious, but she really did it, and I appreciated that. Shooting scenes with magic powers is extremely difficult because for a character like Jean, when there's no prop to help you with, such as a weapon or a suit, like, you know, Iron Man, it's mostly CGI. Like, you know, the body motion will be there, but you don't see the face, so it's not. I'm not saying Robert Downey Jr. is a bad actor. He's probably like top 5 right now, and probably like top 10, top 15 all time in my opinion. Or like a weapon, like, you know, the shield for Captain America. You just, like, you know, it helps acting when you can throw it, or when you have the hammer like Thor, etc. Like, you can see I'm a huge Marvel fan, but when you have those props and tools to help you with, it's much more easy to, you know, to act your scene. As to psychic powers, it's all about the eyes, the facial expression, and your hand acting. And hand acting is extremely difficult. Like, you ask a lot of actors that had to do it for a main role, it's probably the hardest thing to do, especially when, like, you're on wires, like Jean, when she's she's levitating actually, and in the trailer she deflects lightning and stuff, and she when she is facing Magneto, it's all about hand acting. So, not spoiling anything, it's stuff that you can see in the trailer, but I'm gonna stop, like, you know, just standing on Sophie Turner. Just terrific job. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the acting. Well, you know, the rest of the cast is actually like pretty good, as I said. Michael Fassbender, Magneto, it's pretty tough to beat. James McAvoy as Charles Xavier. In some parts, he went a little over the top, but it kind of fit the mood of the movie, that it's like, I don't know, like, I'm panicking, like, I don't know what to do, like, something is wrong and we have to do something, but no matter what we do, there's major drawbacks. So I saw Charles Xavier as like a vulnerable, egotistic character, which is really good in this storyline. James McAvoy just killed it. The only thing I would say about the main cast that maybe I didn't enjoy as much was Jennifer Lawrence. It's not a surprise, she dies in the movie. Mystique dies, Raven. So you see it in the trailer. Sophie Turner said it in interviews in the past. Same thing for James McAvoy. It wasn't a surprise for anyone, and Jennifer Lawrence publicly said she wanted out of X-Men movies. She wanted to move on to you know, other projects, and Simon Kinberg just brought her back to finish off her character arc, which was something that was supposed to happen before Disney purchased Fox. So, you know, I think it's pretty obvious that the movie didn't really want to spend a lot of time with Raven, because, you know, Jennifer Lawrence probably didn't want to spend like 6 months shooting, and that's it. You see it on the press tour, she wasn't there for like 75% of the stuff, like interviews on TV shows, etc. Well, she was there for a few, but Sophie Turner, Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender were everywhere, and you saw like a few appearances from Jennifer Lawrence. That's it. So she was probably not the most motivated person to play in this movie, but she's fine. She has like a few lines where she's just typical Jennifer Lawrence, like she kills it. But there are moments like you're like, do you even care about what's going on? So that's pretty much it. So if there were to be a recast, we already knew that, you know, Jennifer Lawrence wouldn't be there, especially now under Disney. I think like everybody's going to be recast. Unfortunately, it sucks, but maybe they go with the multiverse route and they keep like Storm, they keep Alexandra Shipp, which I think has like another movie under her belt, under her contract. Same thing for Sophie Turner. She said, well, I don't mind getting paid for not acting, but I'd like to earn my money. So I think Disney's just gonna pay off everyone and say like, see you later. So it's fine. Disney has the money to do it, but I might enjoy the multiverse route where they at least give the actors the opportunity to finish off what they started. That's pretty much it for the acting. Like, you know, Alexandra Shipp was really good as Storm. Unfortunately, a little underused because the movie was too short and wasn't focused on Storm. Storm has always been underused in X-Men movies pretty much, so nothing special here. Beast, Nicholas Hoult, I think it was his best depiction of the character. He showed very well that Beast was conflicted and he eventually decided to side with Magneto instead of siding with Charles Xavier. So that's pretty good. Ty Sheridan, very tough to act when you cannot use your eyes, because he has like the glasses. Well, glasses. And that's it. Like, he couldn't do much to really sell his character, because eye acting is extremely important, especially in stuff like superhero movies where you need to see the emotion when you use your powers, etc. Like something that Sophie Turner had the luxury of doing, and she did very well. Ty Sheridan couldn't in his Cyclops impersonation. So that's pretty much it. Jessica Chastain as the alien character. I'm not going to spoil really who she is, but I felt like she didn't have a large spectrum of emotions, but I think it was on purpose, because the alien characters are all like that in the movie. Like, there's no emotions at all. They're cold, kind of cruel, and it didn't really impact me, may it be in a good or bad way. But what I liked about her is that she accelerated the empowering of Jean and brought us to a climax, which I think was the strongest part of the movie. Not necessarily the best thing about the movie, but the strongest part, which was the train heist we see in the trailer. One of the main strengths of Dark Phoenix is that Jean's struggle is really felt throughout the whole movie. She quickly goes from one emotion to the other, and it heavily impacts how her powers manifest. And she shows remorse for her actions because, well, she killed one of her X-Men friends, and a pretty important one at that. And even though she has remorse, she's unable to stop her downfall. And something that the movie does well is accurately demonstrating how powerful the Phoenix Force is in the movie, and really showing how it can corrupt its host, because it's very difficult to adapt something like the Phoenix Force in a movie, because of how godlike it is in the comics. Like it destroyed the solar system, and you don't see that in the movie, of course, because it would be like completely pointless. Like, you know, just blow up the whole universe. There's no movie to make about that, pretty much. But yeah, it's a pretty tough challenge that Simon Kinberg and his team had to rise up to. But I think they do a great job of scaling it to compare it to other mutant powers that you see in the movie. Like, it's insanely strong, and it makes her near invincible. But it has a major drawback on its host and the mental stability of the host. So I thought it was well depicted, but if it was like level 10 power in the comics, like, you know, 10 being the top, like the most powerful thing ever, in the movie it's probably like a 5 or 6, maybe a 7 if you stretch it. So it's scaled down to actually like make a movie that can stand on its own. Like, it's not completely pointless, and you like the movie just makes no sense from beginning to end, because from the moment she had the Phoenix Force, that would be over. Like, from the moment she starts spiraling down, there's absolutely nothing you can do, and that's it. It's in the comic books, she could destroy Thanos with the 6 Infinity Stones in a snap. That's just how powerful the Phoenix Force is. So yeah, that's it. The movie is really at its best during the action scene. So I was talking a little bit earlier about the train scene, which is the third act, the final act, and the special effects really on par with the best in the industry, like Star Wars and the MCU movies. Phoenix boosted powers are quite true, as I said, but really toned down. The Cerebro scenes look really good, which is Charles' machine, where he can, you know, search the world for mutant minds, etc. And I think the Cerebro also helps explain where Jean is at a certain point. Storm's lightning special effects are like probably the best lightning effects I've seen in any movie, including Thor. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, special effects are definitely not what's dragging the movie down. Soundtrack, just insane. Hans Zimmer never fails at his job. Sound effects are pretty top notch. Something I liked about Apocalypse was, you know, Jean's scene where she like goes all out on Apocalypse, but the sound effect I thought was weird. It was cool when you see it, but when you rewatch it, you're like, what's that screeching sound? It's a little odd, but in this movie there's definitely nothing that leaves you like wondering what was that sound? What was that? So very good in general. As for tempo and pacing, I feel like there was a lot of room for improvement. I completely understood everything that was going on because I follow the franchise. I know pretty much every bit of content that they try to put in this movie pretty well, compared to an average viewer like my roommate, who maybe never opened an X-Men comic book, where maybe they're gonna have like moments where it's a little bit more confusing. So yeah, the villain concept was based on the comics, not very accurately, like not like down to the line. It was like a little cloudy, but I understood what they meant, and I didn't have to get it explained by the movie. Like, you know, over explaining just can kill a movie. But sometimes maybe take like an extra 30 seconds to detail that kind of stuff, so there's no confusion. Like, is this character good or evil? Is it part of this group or this group or this group. I'm trying to say that without spoiling anything, but I think you guys will understand if you see the movie. So yeah, some people might not just get what's going on for certain small bits, and Google can help after the movie, but it affects your viewing experience, like live viewing experience. The Phoenix Force could have been explained a little bit more as well. I don't remember it being clearly named in the movie. They say it looks like a phoenix, etc. So that wasn't very cool for a comic book fan, not hearing the Phoenix Force. Like, I saw it in French. Maybe that's lost in translation, but I would have liked to hear that. The movie went for the simpler and safer way for most casual viewers, but if you're a diehard X-Men fan, maybe you'll want a little bit more respect to the lore and different elements, and you want to hear those things be named. Overall, I would say an extra 20 minutes would have been welcome to really add more depth and details to the movie. I mentioned earlier, maybe take a little bit more time to explain some characters, some motivation, some backgrounds, just for the viewers, but also some action scenes or just some scenes in general that were like a little short, that could have used a little minute or two to really be more complete. One scene I think of is the scene where Jean goes to see Magneto, and you see there's the helicopter. I think there could have been a little bit more in this scene, because it was good, but it was pretty short. It was one of my favorite parts of the movie, so I was like, okay, it's already over. It's cool, but I hope there's something better to come. And the train scene at the end was even better, so I was fine with that. But yeah, just an extra 20 minutes, because it's not even 2 hours. This extra time would have been pretty cool to set up the characters, key elements, pay a little bit more of a homage to comic books. As for humor, I don't think it's relevant for this movie to be funny, because it's supposed to be very dark. It's about someone getting corrupted and, going down a path that leads closer to evil. So it's not supposed to be like Deadpool at all. If you expect like an X-Men movie with the MCU humor or Deadpool humor, this isn't for you. I'll be straight up honest. Like, there's like 5 or 6 funny moments in the movie, not much more. As to there's in the MCU, like Avengers Endgame, like I laughed 20, like I can remember 20 scenes where I actually like legit laughed. Like, the MCU does it well. X-Men not that much, except for Deadpool. So, and this movie is probably the worst in terms of humor, but it's completely meant to be this way. It's not a comedy. There are some few funny moments, as I said. So if you want a little bit of humor, you'll be fine. It doesn't follow the generic hero doing good things story with a happy ending for the hero who defeats the bad guys. Like, it's definitely not your typical superhero movie. Like, good guy faces problem, defeats the enemy, wins, everybody lives happy forever ever. No, Dark Phoenix is completely the opposite. So to recap, the movie is not nearly as bad as the critics say, and it's actually like a good movie. If you're an X-Men fan, it's probably gonna hit the right notes. I read a little bit on forums and stuff, and it's definitely not the 20s or 30s of Rotten Tomatoes, or Metacritics I think are like at 45 on IMDb. It's more like the consensus for viewers probably is gonna be like, when the movie rolls out of theaters, I think it's going to be around a 6.5 or 6.6, I would say. And now I think it's at 6.1. So, if you're like a casual, you're probably not going to like this movie, because there's some bits that are a bit more confusing. And that's fine. Like, this movie was a very, very, very tough challenge because of everything it involves. Like, the Dark Phoenix saga is spread over a lot of media content, from the comic books. Like, it's a pretty long storyline, and I would have liked to see a trilogy instead of like a standalone movie, well, a single movie explaining that, because there's like in the comics there are like 3 main parts, and there's one where it's actually not Jean, it's a Dark Phoenix impersonating Jean, and then there's another part where she comes back because she was in a cocoon in San Francisco Bay, and Jean then comes back like a few years later. Sophie Turner, just amazing. She makes for a very beautiful and very convincing Jean Grey. And in her color up state, I thought she was quite intimidating, way more than, you know, Thanos or Hela, which I thought like looked like a little bit more like funny, I would say. But I would definitely not mess around with Jean Grey in her color up state. Very, very convincing special effects and makeup. The cast delivers very good performances in general. I told about my exception, like maybe my ups and downs about them. The soundtrack, Hans Zimmer, there's nothing much to say. Special effects are rock solid. The action scenes make the movie relevant, and the power levels are satisfying, not perfect, like the power scaling, and the intrigue makes sense. So all around, I would say it's not a perfect movie anywhere, but it's not like you know that Simon Kinberg's aware of what he's doing, and you also are aware, like you notice that it's a directorial debut. There are things that, you know, the Russo brothers would have just wiped and just made different, and it would have worked better. But Simon Kinberg is a passionate, and he's an X-Men fan, probably more than anybody else involved in this movie, and it shows. Like, he's passionate about it, and sometimes I feel like he's so passionate that he forgets things. Like, you know, mentioning the Phoenix Force itself, like what's the origin of the Phoenix Force. The power levels maybe are not perfect, so you know he wants to do good, but sometimes, I'm not saying rookie mistakes, but experience would have done it better. So I respect Simon Kinberg insanely high, very highly for this movie, but he could have done things better. Well, you see the scores, and I'm not giving this movie a perfect score, so he could have done better. There are perfect movies in my opinion. Avengers Endgame is one, and I think in my mind there's like 3 perfect movies. At no point do you really think like, okay, well, they just need to do that and the problem is solved and the movie's over. Like in Infinity War, you see in the beginning of the movie, Doctor Strange chops off an enemy's arm with his portal. And then when they're fighting Thanos, you're like, well, he could do that and just like, you know, chop Thanos' arm off and that's it. Like, it's over. And it would just be like, of course they're not gonna do this because it's a movie that was meant to have like a completely different ending in another movie. But you have those moments where you're like, there's nothing they can do to stop Jean because she's so powerful compared to what they can actually do. So you quickly understand that either Jean must be neutralized or she'll just go down even more in that downfall. So the story is pretty steady and borrows great concepts from the comics without being exclusive to it, which brings a bit of a surprise if you're a comic book reader. Like, I read every comic book about Jean Grey, especially Dark Phoenix. I read them like in the past few weeks, and it doesn't throw you out too much, but there are things like, is that really it? So on the other hand, like, pacing could have been better if the movie was a bit longer. Like I said, an extra 20 minutes spread in, I would say, 5 to 10 different parts would have been very cool, and really take more time to explain details, to give it more depth, and maybe attach you more to the movie, because there are some people that just say like it's boring. Like, I don't I don't relate to anything that's going on. So maybe those extra minutes could have helped you help hook those viewers, and make it maybe a little bit more relevant. The writing was good, but incomplete and shaky at times. There are parts that are too rich for no particular reason, but there are parts that are empty of content where it could have really helped the movie launch to another level. So I gave it scores on different aspects, which I will show on screen. The story and writing, I would give it a 7, because, as I said, it's tough to do better in a directorial debut, and it's pretty accurate without being like, a copy and paste from the comic book. What I think they could have done that would have been better is to make that storyline into 2 movies. So the first one would be Uncanny X-Men 101 to 108. So the Phoenix Saga. So when Jean comes into contact with the Phoenix Force, and maybe like go and scratch a little bit of the Dark Phoenix Saga, which is 129 to 138, and her downfall and her corruption, and maybe like you take stuff from 129, 130, 131 and make that the end of the first movie, and then the second movie would be like really the Dark Phoenix, which is what we really like, the best part about those comics, because this is like the best of the X-Men franchise and some of the best of the Marvel comic books of all time. Action scenes and the climax, I would give it an 8.5. I don't like the fact that you end off knowing that Fox is now transferring to Disney. I would have liked the end to be like crystal clear. That's what happens. This character is doing this character, like to really clearly explain each character's ending. So if you see the movie, you're gonna understand what I mean. Like, there's not gonna be anything under those same people again, so might as well just be like straight to the point. This is this and this is that, which we don't see in this movie. I would have given like maybe an extra 0.5 or another point if it was clear at the end. But then again, it's Hollywood style to like go off cloudy and let people speculate. Pacing and tempo was really the problem of this movie. I'd give it like a 5.5 or a 6 out of 10. I already explained the timing stuff could have brought this movie to a whole other level. The acting, I would give an 8 in general, and to the big 3, so Sophie Turner, James McAvoy, and Michael Fassbender, at a solid 9. The movie is not gonna flop because of them. They actually are making the movie even better than it could have been. Soundtrack and special effects, like, you can't really say anything bad about them. I've tried to go on YouTube and see, like, were there any special effects or any things that didn't make sense about soundtrack and special effects, and nobody said anything. They were all complaining about other stuff. So I'd give it a 10 because I couldn't find anything wrong. Comic book accuracy, I would give it a 7 because, as I said, it takes the key elements, but it doesn't explain them well enough, and it leaves too much on the table because the movie's too short. So I can't really take off more points because this goes with pacing and tempo as well as story and writing, but I would give it a 7. My global appreciation is an 8 out of 10. I would rank it 4th or 5th in the X-Men movies. I would rank it pretty close to First Class. My number 1 would be Logan, second would be Days of Future Past, and First Class would be the third, but Dark Phoenix, in my opinion, is not very far behind. If you include Deadpool, Logan, Days of Future Past, Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2, First Class, then Dark Phoenix would be like 6th. So that's where it is, in my opinion. I think it's disappointing that it ends on a bad note publicly, but for me it ends on a right note because it's my favorite storyline from the X-Men franchise, and I really liked a lot of this about this movie. But going with a more experienced director, and it's fine that you reshoot, but maybe while you're reshooting, you know already what you're playing with, and maybe like put in another 20-25 million and add those extra 15-20 minutes that will make the movie better. And maybe instead of having like a 33 million box office debut, you have a 50-55, and you make up with that money in the long run. Of course, hindsight 2020, it's pretty easy to say, but you know, just making the movie a little bit longer would have definitely made it better, especially explaining things that are very cloudy, and making the action scenes a little bit longer. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter and on Twitch. And if you guys want to discuss about this movie, because you know, on the internet right now, there's not much discussion going on. It's like either, oh, I hate this movie, lol, it's shit, or it's like, I really like this movie, but there's not a lot of discussion. Compared to other movies, you see like Avengers Endgame, people were talking about it, they were discussing it, they were talking Easter eggs and stuff. There's not a lot of that for Dark Phoenix, and it's something that I really would like to discuss. So just write it down in comments if you have an opinion on this movie. Be respectful. If you hate this movie and you want to like argue with me, that's fine. I'll do it, but stay respectful. And if you like this movie as well, just let me know if you like it better than me. If you disagree on some of the things I said. So I just want to discuss this movie. I think it's worth it. So yeah, just give me a little comment, and don't forget to subscribe, like. And if you want me to review another movie because you like my structure, I would love to review other movies for you. And just let me know in the comment section below. So I will see you all in the next video. Peace!